On a lonely cliff, nestled by the vast, whispering ocean, stood a lighthouse. It was a beacon of hope, bright, faithful, and for many a sign of life itself. For countless years, an old keeper named Thomas and his daughter, Elara, tended to its flame. With gentle hands and watchful eyes, they guided lost ships safely home through the most unforgiving storms. The sea was their companion, their history, their everything. One quiet afternoon, as Elara helped her father trim the wick of the great lamp, she looked out at the endless blue expanse. Her voice was soft, carrying a hint of old sorrow. "Father," she began, "how can you still trust the sea after all it has taken from us?" Thomas paused, a faint, knowing smile gracing his weathered face. He looked at his daughter, his eyes reflecting the deep, rolling waves. "Because, my dear," he said, his voice as calm as a gentle tide, "not every wave comes to cause harm. Some are merely here to remind us that we are still alive." Their peaceful routine was interrupted one evening by the arrival of a stranger. A young fisherman named Rowan had washed ashore, his small boat battered by a sudden squall. Elara, with a kind heart, rushed to help him. She offered him shelter and a warm meal, and in the days that followed, a connection began to form. Days turned into weeks, and a noticeable change came over Elara. The girl who once spoke only to the waves now filled the quiet lighthouse with laughter. Rowan's stories of the open sea and distant lands brought a spark back into her eyes. Thomas watched them from a distance, a smile playing on his lips. It warmed his heart to see his daughter happy again. But deep inside, a different kind of storm was quietly brewing, not in the churning sea, but within the chambers of his own heart. A shadow of doubt began to creep in, silent and unseen. One moonless night, as Thomas made his rounds, he saw something that confirmed his growing unease. Down by the docks, hidden in the shadows, Rowan was whispering with a gruff-looking sailor. Thomas couldn't hear their words, but he saw the unmistakable glint of coins changing hands. His expression hardened instantly. The warmth he had felt just moments before turned to ice. The next evening, the sky turned a menacing shade of grey. The wind howled, and the sea began to churn, signaling the approach of a powerful storm. Thomas climbed the winding stairs to the top of the lighthouse. He checked the lamp. The oil was full, the wick perfectly trimmed, ready to burn through the darkest night. But as he prepared to light it, his mind was consumed by a single, poisonous thought. He's here for the gold, not for her. His heart heavy with suspicion, he went to find Rowan. "What were you doing down at the docks last night?" Thomas demanded, his voice sharp and accusatory. Rowan, surprised by the old man's tone, replied calmly, "I was making a deal for lumber, to help rebuild the old dock, the one you've always wanted to fix." Thomas shook his head, his face a mask of disbelief. "Don't lie to me. I saw the coins. Don't stand here and pretend you care about us, about this place." A flicker of hurt crossed Rowan's face, but his eyes remained soft. "If you can't trust me, Thomas," he said quietly, "then perhaps the sea deserves more of your faith than I do." Without another word, he turned and walked away, his figure quickly swallowed by the encroaching darkness of the storm. The storm hit with a terrifying fury. Giant waves crashed against the cliffs, and the wind shrieked like a vengeful spirit. The sea, once a familiar friend, had become a raging monster. Suddenly, Elara burst into the lantern room, her face pale with panic. "Father," she cried, her voice trembling. "Rowan's boat, he went out. He said he had to anchor it securely before the storm got worse." Thomas stood frozen, his gaze fixed on the unlit lamp. He saw Rowan's face in his mind, the glint of coins, the whispered conversation in the dark. A cold, bitter anger seized him. "Let the sea teach him a lesson about truth," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. And with a heavy heart filled with doubt, he made a decision. He turned away from the lamp, leaving it cold and dark. For the first time in decades, the light that had guided so many others chose silence. The entire coast was plunged into an unforgiving blackness. The following morning, the storm had passed. The sun rose over a calm, glistening sea. But the tranquility was deceptive. The shoreline was littered with wreckage, splintered wood, and tattered sails tossed carelessly by. The waves. Among the debris, something caught Elara's eye. It was a small, intricately carved wooden box, bobbing gently near the rocks. With a trembling hand, she retrieved it. Her name was etched into the lid. Inside were 3 gold coins and a folded letter. Thomas took the note, his hands shaking as he read the simple, devastating words, "For your father to fix the dock he never had the time to repair. Please tell him that some people are here to give, not to take." The strength drained from Thomas's body. The paper slipped from his fingers as his face collapsed in silent, crushing agony. Alara stared out at the empty horizon, tears streaming down her face, her voice a broken whisper. "You turned off the light that was meant to save him, that night." Thomas climbed the stairs to the lantern room once more. He lit the lamp, and this time its flame burned brighter than ever before, casting a brilliant, unwavering beam across the water. The light flickered across his face, illuminating the deep lines of guilt and grief etched there. The narrator's voice, now gentle and full of emotion, fills the silence. That night, the sea didn't destroy the lighthouse. Doubt did. Trust is like a delicate flame. Once you blow it out, it may never burn the same way again. Thomas stood alone, whispering to the vast, indifferent sea, "Forgive me, my boy. I forgot that the darkest storms are meant to test our faith, not our love." The lighthouse continues to shine, a steadfast guardian over calm waters. A ship sails by, guided safely by its light, as the morning sun turns the sea to gold. When love is the one building the light in your life, never, ever let doubt be the one to turn it off, because sometimes what you choose not to believe in may never have the chance to return.